Hello, everybody. My name is Marsh, and today I decided to do another book review. This one is for a book everyone should know called The Lord of the Flies. The Lord of the Flies is a good little epic poem about four little hobbits that go to fight a troll under a bridge, and the troll then drops a ring, and then the four hobbits have to break the ring so they could divide it and have each a piece for themselves and wear it like as a bracelet. Um, or okay, I'll stop messing with you, but we're actually reviewing Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Overall, for this video, it's more of like a video diary for myself, just to know my opinions on the book, what I thought about it, and overall what I took from it. And if you enjoyed as well, you can share what you thought as well, and who knows, we could talk about it or something. But overall, what is the book about? As many of you may know, it's about a group of children who get stranded on a deserted island in the middle of the ocean. They survive a plane crash, at least a few of them. It doesn't really explain how all of them get there. I assume they're all from the plane crash. But basically, the main character that we take a point of view from is Ralph. Ralph finds his friend Piggy, a little fat boy with like no hair and glasses, and he basically also finds a few other like little kids, and then a main character named Jack, who is a choir leader, which is also like he's also our antagonist, I guess. And basically their job is to survive. They are trying to get off the island, and they are also trying to I had the wrong screen up there. That's great. We'll leave that in there, because why not? Why not leave it in there? But this is Lord of the Flies, not my audio. But anyways, they're trying to get off the island and survive, but the main conflict comes with the methods and who they choose to be in charge. The original vote by everyone was for Ralph to be in charge as the chief and make decisions. So he decides, let's make a fire. Let's have all these kids make a fire so there's smoke signals at the top of the island so that a ship, when they're coming by, will see them, and then they will come rescue us. So everyone's fine with that at first, until little old Jack, he wants to be a hunter, and he wants to kill boars, and he believes he should be the chief. He was the one that was in second place, and he's probably the most aggressive of the kids so far, and he's just wanting to overall do his own thing and be the ruler, essentially. And he's not really worried about keeping the fire going and keeping the smoke signal so that they can be saved. And this is where the main conflict comes in between the two. They start to fight over whose responsibility it is to keep the fire out, especially one day when they actually do see a boat come by, but the fire isn't lit. And this breaks the group. This causes a huge divide, a huge argument, and it really shows the difference between the two groups of children, ones that are, in this case, Piggy and Ralph, looking for responsibility and just trying to live and survive, versus others who are just having fun, ignoring all responsibility, and wanting to hunt like Jack. The main thing that separates this book, or that makes this book more than just a simple survival tale, is what happens to the kids internally. So the kids essentially break. They become violent, they start to hunt each other, and they start to become extremely paranoid. Part of that paranoia is built up by this dark entity. I don't remember the name of it or what they called it, but it might have been the Dark Man, I don't remember. But he essentially is this creature that the little ones or the little kids are seeing, and the older kids are trying to tell them it's not real because they partly fear it themselves. We never really find out if this dark entity is real in the first place. It's shown to be sort of real, because there is a point where we see them and they run away from the dark entity. And there's a point where one of the other characters, Simon, he stumbles upon the dark entity, and the dark entity threatens him, tells him to leave. And that's after there was a sacrifice built with a hog's head on a pike that Jack's crew left. But it's never really proven to be a dark entity. They never find a body. There's no real evidence. It's only singular accounts and then a very dark account at night, which they can't necessarily prove. They say they saw it, but there's no real evidence since they don't have a dead body or a body with them. So the buildup of the entity, the differing opinions on how they should survive, how they should keep the fire going, is what builds this conflict. And it pushes these kids to break and fight. Eventually, as sort of expected, Jack takes over and he starts to threaten anyone who gets in his way. He starts to steal from Ralph, steals Piggy's glasses so they could set fire, and all he's worried about is power. Meanwhile, Ralph is just trying to survive and get off the island. And the main part that really, really shows how they lost their humanity, basically, is when they kill Simon. Simon sort of goes crazy, and he's injured from his encounter with the dark entity, and he eventually shows up on the beach one night in an unrecognizable state, and Jack's crew is having a feast, and they start chanting and chanting, and then they see him, and they think it's the Dark Man, I believe his name. I'll put the name here somewhere, but they end up killing Simon, and this is honestly the turning point of where there's no more return. Are they still human? What have they done? And Ralph sees this as well, and it terrifies him because he is still trying to contemplate everything himself as well. And at this point, they start to hunt down Ralph as well. First, they kill Piggy because Piggy's just a fat little kid who can't really do much. He has a lot of like genetic disorders, like asthma, and he can't really control it. It's out of his control. It's not his fault, but as kids, they don't really view protecting him. He's kind of just a weak link, and they bully him, which was a normal thing for back in the day. This was written in 1954. There wasn't really as much a viewpoint on not bullying as there is nowadays. And one of the main lines that I want to read that Ralph said at the very, very end of the book was this: Ralph wept for the end of innocence, the darkness of man's heart, and the fall through the air of the true wise friend called Piggy. I read that with a bad cadence, but he, like I said, the loss of innocence. These kids were corrupted and they no longer were human, essentially. They became what really a lot of older humans do in times of war. This was written after World War II. And I think at least what I gained from it was the author was trying to show a perspective of man itself. When pushed to the edge, they can become dark and they can break and they can lose their way. Just like in war, they do what they need to survive, or some of them, in Jack's case, they do what they need to for power and glory. And it's not always about survival, which is part of why wars happen, in that case World War II, because Adolf was a little, I won't use profanity, but we all know how he was a horrible person, and he wanted power. And so they kind of use both ways, I feel like, to describe war or just humanity in general, and how when pushed to the brink, they lose their innocence and they can do very dark things. That's the overall theming of what I got from it. The book itself, how it reads and everything, it still holds up for its time. It was one of the first books to do the genre of people trapped on a desert island. Of course, there were others like Robinson Crusoe, but that was a very more wholesome aspect of everything with those books. And then there's plenty of others, other like survival ones like Hatchet. But the main thing with this one is the change between them, the darkness that it goes to with these kids. And it really inspired a lot of stuff nowadays, like Lost. I think there's a show called The 100 with CW, where all these kids basically get on an island and they kill each other for power. They become the worst of what humans can be. But that's basically what I think William Golding was going for. I could be wrong, and you can tell me different, and you can correct me, and that's totally fine. And I hope you do. But that's what I took out of it overall. There was one other aspect that I wanted to cover. It was a little weird, sort of like a hypothetical. So on the last page, when they get rescued by the officer at the end, he says, It was like that at first, said Ralph. Before things. He stopped. We were together then. The officer nodded, helpfully. I know. Jolly good show. Like Coral Island. I don't know what Coral Island is. I don't want to spend the time to investigate it, but it sort of made me think, like, was this an experiment? Did they do the crash on purpose and wanted to see what happens to these kids when they're put in this situation? Yeah. That's just sort of a hypothetical scenario I was thinking of. Anyways, I really enjoyed the book. It's a short read. I definitely recommend it. If you've never read classics, I think it's a good intro. I'm starting to get into classics. I usually read sci-fi fantasy stuff, and it's a good start, I would say. It's not very difficult at all. It's easy to read, and it's very short, and I think it's worthwhile. It inspired a lot of stuff in the future, and definitely is something that we can take from, like you've seen in this video, from what I got from it, and it still has pertinent themes towards today. But that's my overall thoughts. I'm not going to give it a specific rating. I don't really care to do it that way. If I enjoy it, which I did. And why don't you tell me how you enjoyed it, or if you didn't enjoy it as well, tell me your thoughts. And any theories or ideas you have, any recommendations, and overall, let's see if we can have a discussion in the comments. Thank you for watching, though, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.